Thank you so much for the invitation, for your time, for the interview, to the whole of the community of Brazil, um, for the invitation to be with you. I would love to share with you the next 15 minutes or so, a little bit more about me and about the work that I'd like to share with you. Sure, where to start? So, firstly, I trained in Boulder originally in 1994, 1995, and my Unit 2 instructor was Pedro Prado, which all of you, I'm sure, knows very well, your founder of your community there. Um, there were a lot of instructors in that initial training that I had, including Peter Levine,
Mm.
including Toluca. So really big spirits and people who had a very big influence on me and on my insight into the work and the way in which it took me in the future. Then from there, I started assisting trainings, phases one, two, and three. I got to assist Pedro. Spent half of the time in the European school in Germany, and half in Boulder. Did my advanced training in Ilabella
Mhm.
with Jeffrey Maitland and with Pedro. And then started teaching both in Boulder at the era in Munich, taught the school to South Africa, taught some unit in Japan, and the most lately has been in Canada. Uh, yeah, and that's the whole training that was happening in South Africa at that time. There was a really nice diversity of students from all over the world that brought their perspectives of their experience of embodiment, their experience of the work, their feedback on the work that we do. Um, so Jeffrey Maitland's work had a big influence on me,
Mhm.
Spacious Body.
Mhm.
I went searching for more information and more insight into what is it about space that is so fundamental and so central in our relationship to gravity and
Mhm.
in the formation of our postural coordination and our orientation in terms of movement. I read, many articles, lots of phenomenological texts on from Merleau-Ponty to people who followed him uh, on in terms of who wrote after him. Um, Samuel Torres is one of them. Body and World, um, to try to get an understanding of this centrality of space. And then in one workshop, when I was trying to describe this concept, the phrase that popped out as an attempt to describe it was reflexive vectors of orientation.
Mhm.
Reflexive vectors of orientation. And I'd like to talk you through my own experience of that and what that means for me. And that will give a clear indication of practically what we will be doing in the workshop that's coming
Perfect.
up in September. So, just a brief definition. Reflexive, the meaning there is below consciousness, something that we do without necessarily thinking about it. So, a very early organizing factor
Mhm.
in the body, reflexive. Vector, force with direction, some form of movement or force with a direction attached to that. And orientation is spatial orientation. So it has to do with my direct anatomical orientation to space. Uh, in other words, how I shape myself has to do with an active relationship that I'm performing on the space around me. So let's leave that in the air for a moment and then go. So if I go back to my own body and sensing my own body right now, and maybe we can all do that to see if we can participate in the experience as I explain it. The place that even now and historically has come back to me and again, the first place for me that is not resting, that I sense where there is some activity taking place. Just notice in your own body and those listening, if you find a place like that, if there's a place that comes to your foreground of your perception, that is not resting at the moment, that is performing some kind of action.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to anatomically point. So for me, that is the left head of the humerus. My left head of the humerus has got an interesting history, and it's actively engaged with that history. Lots of things happened. One of them was somebody threw something at me that impacted me there, and hence I became aware that it was active. It was not resting in space. When I went deeper into what is active, what is the nature of that activity, I realized that the head of my left humerus is lifting up slightly and orienting anteriorly. Okay, so if we talk about anatomically what is happening there, excuse me, then the long head of my tricep is active. Long head of the tricep is active, pulling the humerus superiorly. The posterior deltoid is active, helping with that action, and both of them together also orients the head of the humerus anteriorly and slightly, possibly medially. Okay, so there's a very precise action, and that action can be described anatomically like I did, and it can also be described in terms of the action of my anatomy on space. In this case, a directional pointing into space without me consciously being aware of it, consciously acting it. So that is part of the shape that I assume. That is part of my postural coordination, my long-term postural coordination. And my thesis is that that any form that I see, that we see in our clients or in ourselves, any form that we see, any position, whether it's internal rotation or external rotation, whether it's kyphosis, lordosis, any of that has also to do with a direct acting on space. Okay, it's not only an anatomical pull or holding in relation to other anatomical structures, but it is an actual acting on space. So feel free to jump in with anything if you have any comments or questions.
No, I thank you. Thank you. I remember reading your article that you said something about a first experience in maybe the first Rolfing session that you received, that your Rolfer was with one hand in your chest and one hand on your back. and asked some question about how, I don't remember exactly the question, was about something about the experience between the two hands and who was there. And so I'm kind of connecting that experience with what you are explaining now. Can you go back there and explore a little bit?
Yes, certainly. So you remember 100% correctly. My Rolfer literally had her hands on the front and the back, and she asked me, "What are you experiencing between my hands right now?" And it was an immense invitation of all the bodywork modalities that I've experienced up to that point. And there were many movement and touch therapies. No one had asked that basic question. No one had asked that basic question. Open, really open. And I was immersed immediately in that physical anatomical space. I was invited in there to experience it directly. There was a vast experience of all kinds of things, but I had zero words. I had no words to describe, to put to my subjective experience, to my lived experience of my anatomical space at that moment. So it was this flood of feeling, this flood of invitation without any words with it. But it got me present, and it got me present into that anatomical space. And then through the years, I realized that there's a wealth of experience that lives there and that is different from person to person. We all have a kind of, I like to call it a structure of our perceptual field or a structure of our perception. Some people describe it more in terms of sensation. Some people more in terms of texture. Some people more in terms of quality of movement, the quality of the breath that is happening there. Somebody has a visual access to describing what the inside of the rib cage looks like for them. And some folks describe it in terms of space, lots of space, cramped space, whatever the case may be, empty space, filled space. So I became fascinated with what is the nature of our subjective embodied experience. And that is part of the inquiry that got me into finding phenomenology and reading about phenomenology to find out what kind of language can we put to this world of our lived experience. And what can be inclusive? What vision can I have that is inclusive of all my clients' experiences? Yeah, it became helpful to notice that people have different ways of describing it. Therefore, their perceptual fields, what they have access to, is different, and that can guide my inquiry as I ask them questions to, number one, lead them deeper into their own experience, whether it's quality of movement or spatial, or the nature of sensation. And then once they're deeper in there, to ask them possibly a question about some of the other categories of direct experience. So they get to experience outside of their normal perceptual field. That has profound effect as well in terms of the work that can happen of reorganizing the nervous system as we're Rolfing. If we go a step further to this, the shoulder that I was describing, what to do and what we're going to do in the workshop with that.
Yes, that would be good.
I became interested when I realized that this is part of my of the action of the holding pattern that is present in various parts of my body. Firstly, that I wanted to have a way of refining my perception, of testing whether my perception was accurate or not. It's one thing to stand in front of our clients and to see this is what I see and that's what I see, but how can I test it? How can I refine my perception? So I started literally testing it. And to give you the example here, for example, I can put a finger, as a practitioner, I can put a finger on the point which I feel is doing the pointing into space. Then I can ask the client to meet me there, so that they're performing the action which I perceive that they are already performing. And the interesting thing is that when I have it correct, when my perception is correct, the person will touch me with that anatomical structure exactly on my finger. Beautiful. And exactly in the direction that I'm pointing in. Then I know my perception has been correct. If it's not, then I know my perception has been incorrect. Now, if you think, let's take this for a moment to the spinous processes of the spine, okay? Let's say, I think most of us would have experienced it. Let's say the client is lying supine, and I have my finger on a spinous process of a vertebrae that feels like it's less responsive. It's more solid. It's holding on to something. Perfect. Right? And I ask the client to meet me there with the spinous process. So they have to locate it. That's already a spatial orientation. They have to locate it. Secondly, they have to initiate movement from that spinous process. It's usually very easy to feel if the person is touching or activating with the one superior or inferior, or not at all. Or he's doing it with all three vertebrae together, right? But not necessarily with that one particularly. So he has to access that specific vertebrae and then initiate movement from that specific vertebrae to touch my fingerprint. The point of my finger. So with the spinous process, like a finger onto my finger, then we know that we're in the same place. We're meeting each other there. So anatomical structure. Yes.
I would love to continue listen to you, but just we will have 5 days together. So yes, as I understand, we will have some time to explore exactly that. Exactly those direction and confirm if this direction is correct. So this will take some time to go there, to realize what it is, to find direction and to find the meeting.
Yes, yes, exactly that. And I'm going to talk you through the progression of the 5 days in a moment. So let's say that, let's go back to this one here. Now, I just wanted to use the spine as another example, which might be accessible. All right. So let's say that this one we've done that we've identified that that area is actively projecting into space, that that is
Mm-hmm.
part of the shape that it's communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And we find that our perception is correct in the fact that
Mm-hmm.
it's superior, anterior, possibly slightly medial. What I can then do is go to the opposite, the direct 180-degree opposite part of the structure. At this point, the back
Mm-hmm.
of the head of the humerus. I can ask the person to meet me there. And the interesting thing, the fascinating thing when I started doing this in my practice that happened is I realized that almost in every single instance, the person couldn't. They could not do that immediately. They had to locate the place again. Not easy to locate the place. Whereas before, in the place that they were already oriented into space, they were already there. They were already there and they were already projecting with this vector into space. The opposite was not available to them. The anatomical precision and the action was not available to them. After a little bit, it became available to them, both the place as well as the direction. In other words, in my language, in my understanding, their nervous system was reorienting their anatomical shape, form into their peripersonal space. They were reorienting, reforming themselves into the space that they were occupying. And then, so that's the vector, right? I have to slow down because I get very excited about
Me too.
about
Me
this.
too. Feel
About
comfortable. Please feel comfortable because
like
we if we don't do it with joy, we stop it.
great, great. You understand? Okay,
Yes,
so
yes, I'm getting it. Thank you.
so the opposite of the original vector becomes available. The body reorganizes, the way that the fibers are contracting and kind of, organizing my shape changes. So this can happen on its own, but it could also happen while I'm doing the manipulation of the fascia and the body. I've found the tissues reorganize quicker. The nervous system reorganizes quicker when I bring this element together with all the other good Rolfing
Mm-hmm.
methods and techniques that I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just put an asterisk there. I'm not saying that what I'm bringing is new. Okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
probably just most likely just a realization of all the things that I've been hearing that good people like Pedro and
Perfect.
Jeffrey Maitland and everybody has been saying all along. It just took a while to drop for me and to drop in my own experience for me.
Perfect.
So,
Thank
so then there are two vectors that are activated, and the person can kind of find a balance of neutrality between the two.
you. Mm-hmm.
The next step after that is reorganizing that area in space in a configurative manner so that it's no longer related to a vector. It's no longer pointing in one specific direction or into its opposite direction, but it's finding its way in space where it can hang neutrally with equal access to activity in wherever it feels that it has an impulse to go, wherever
Mm-hmm.
it's whatever it's responding
Mm-hmm.
to, internal
More
impulse or external
natural,
impulse,
more free,
a
more
natural.
natural.
And this is what we're looking for, right? In Rolfing, we're looking for the
Okay.
shape of the body to change so that we're
Mm-hmm.
neutral in space. We have an equal access to going
Mm-hmm.
forward, to engaging with what's in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
to
Economy of
remove
function.
ourselves, economy of function, and a neutral and an engaged relationship with our whole environment.
Mm-hmm.
So then the person gets to move that anatomical area neutrally into exploring all ranges of space, which we know from Rolfing and Rolfing movement, while any additional things that are holding can be manipulated, touched, helped to reorganize. And the result is the change in shape that we're looking for, the integration of the structure into its spatial environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to add one more component to that, and that is the sternum as an example. So what I realized with the sternum is that it can project into space. If we see
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's a little bit more externally rotated, where the sternum is actively forward,
Mm-hmm.
it can pull upwards more, be superiorly oriented, inferiorly oriented. It can also introject, so it can project into space, it can introject into this anatomical space on the inside of the rib cage. So as another example, that the shape that we see has a spatial orientation that the
Mm-hmm.
fibers help to organize, and that we can help the person to, through their nervous system, through this kind of movement, go to its opposite, reorganize in the development of the 5 days. Shall I talk you through that quickly, and then we
Yes,
can
that's
pick up any
perfect.
pieces that we need. So the development of the 5 days, the beginning of it, I'll present um, some experiential philosophy. I will talk about some philosophy. There's some most of the philosophy is based on um, physiological research.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Perfect.
based it's based on physiology that didn't fit into the existing paradigms. And then philosophers think and ask the question, why doesn't it fit into that? What other um, ways of looking at these phenomena um, can we put together different models to try to describe these phenomena? So I will talk about some research on peripersonal space, on the changeability of peripersonal space, which directly points to this type of work, this way of working. And I'll use some of the phenomenological descriptions and languaging to provide a foundation for what we're going to be exploring. Then we're going to go into our own experiences, so our own experiential interactions, and do some interactions with each other that are just focused on getting the concept in our own bodies. So we know, this is my experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've exchanged it with another person. So I know how it is for them. I know how it is for me. So we have some direct experience of this. Then we're going to go session by session. So the first session, we're going to look at different aspects of reorganizing the shoulder girdle, which we already talked
Mm-hmm.
about a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
the tilt and shift of the pelvis. So
Mm-hmm.
which direction the ASIS is oriented to,
Beautiful.
if it's anteriorly tilted, or
Mm-hmm.
if it's inflared, outflared, all of those will have a difference in the vector that the ASIS is pointing to, orienting
Mm-hmm.
to, for example.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
And the whole breathing mechanism will be involved there. The second day, we will look at the morning, we will look at the second session. So aspects of how the ankle is organized, the foot, to the shape of the foot, the knee. The third session in the afternoon, then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and then eight, nine, and 10. So through the 5 days, we'll work progressively on aspects of the 10 series, which will help to integrate this whole work into the 10 series, beautiful 10 series work that folks are already doing.
Thank you. I'm kind of wow. I'm willing to be there with you, and so it's quite obvious that there will be a completely integration of touch, movement, and language.
Yes,
Of
yes,
course, movement perception, movement meaning, and all of that.
exactly. That's
Because
exactly it.
our school was born in the Brazilian school was born in this deep meeting of structure and function.
Mm,
The first class was led by Pedro and Lyle King. Lyle giving
right,
movement, Pedro giving the structural part,
great.
and together with that we had this huge influence of somatic experience also, and all the background of psychology from Pedro. So what you are taking for us is wow, is what we love.
Wonderful. I had the very good fortune of assisting both Lael and Pedro on different occasions. Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
great, great.
So big influence on
Thank you.
me, on my work.
Thank you. Thank you. How do you think? How do you feel? I think we have enough material for people to see this interview, to have a little bit of the taste of what we will be doing. How do you feel?
It feels very good. Thank you again. Questions are welcome, or a follow-on interview if people would like to know more, are very welcome. I would like to invite you, everybody who's looking. It would be my pleasure to meet you, to work with you, to explore with you this fascinating work that we are doing, and this world, this aspect of that world of the spatial, directly as it relates to you, as in your perceptual system and in the way that you work with your clients. So I'm looking forward to meeting you and to working with you all.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad for this conversation. I hope it can spread throughout our community, and that everybody could be touched by our talk and by the energy that is emanating here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.